Hey, what's up everyone? I just wanted to do a quick, speed build video for you guys today, just to show a little bit of what essential housing tools can do. I haven't really done this format too much, so I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to maybe demonstrate how to do some things like copy paste, use some effects, and make I decided to do like a little bit of a city skyline is the theme I came up with, just to use this as a platform to showcase those features. So what I decided to do for this build is to construct the buildings themselves out of these scavenged plates from Clockwork City. I'm using the tool here to just sort of select 20 or 30 some odd of these plates at a time, and then I'm going over to the Builds tab and constructing a wall template, as you can see there. And this is me just sort of tinkering with the different settings you can use to build a wall of different widths and heights. One of the key things with this tool is you always want to hit reset at the beginning, so it goes and does the measurements of the items that you're actually building with. If you don't do that step, it'll probably either build far away from you or it'll build with the wrong dimensions for the items, and you'll end up with some monstrosity or something that you weren't expecting. So this is pretty much where I think I get the building set how I wanted a quote-unquote building to look for the skyline. And actually, before I go any further, I want to slow this down and show you real quick. So one of the things I always check my settings for essential housing tools before I start a build is what is the directional editing setting set to, because you have two choices. You can either do absolute positioning or you can do relative positioning. If you have this drop down set to relative, the arrows that move things will either move them forward and backwards and right and left if it's relative, or if you change it like I am here to absolute, you can actually edit things using north, south, east, west. That is typically much more advantageous if you want to do a build that's everything is going to be aligned relative to each other. You can move things in definite directions, north, south, east, west. Doesn't matter which way your character's facing. So I just want to point that out. Okay, so now that I've got the building done the way I want it, the next step is to select it and to go to that copy and paste menu, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and then I'm going to paste again immediately from house items. And what that's going to do is it's going to find the items that are the same as whatever's in the clipboard, so these scavenged plates that are nearest to where my character is standing, and it's going to essentially clone them as it did here, and it's going to select the new copy. So I know that when I do a paste like that, I can immediately start using those arrows to start moving the copy of whatever I had copied and pasted. So I'm going to use this strategy here to sort of clone the buildings a few times and make a patch of them that I'll then clone that group of them. So like in this case, I've got 3 of them. I'm sort of arranging them in like a semi-random pattern. And then I'm going to just select all of them, copy those now, and then paste that entire cluster of 3. Now, as I'm doing this process and I'm making these copies of 3 at a time and pasting them, I actually make a mistake, and I use the paste from house items, but I don't think I'm standing next to the piles of items every time I do that. So I'm actually pulling them from wherever I'm standing nearest to. I might even be like cannibalizing items from some of the buildings I've already pasted. So don't do what I did. You can either stand on top of the cluster of items that you want to paste from if you use paste from house items, or you can use paste from inventory if you have the items in your character's inventory or in your bank. It'll find the matching items that way. But just be careful how you do that pasting. Make sure you don't paste from the wrong group. Now, the next thing I do now that I've got all of these buildings sort of just in this random pattern, when I've copied and pasted them all, is I select the entire group, all of the buildings, and I raise them a little bit off the ground. And what I'm doing here is just sort of semi-randomly removing some of the bottom elements of each building. And I'm trying to follow a pattern of removing more items from the base of the quote-unquote buildings that are nearest to me, which is going to be the front of the Skyline. And then as I work my way backwards, I'm going to remove fewer and fewer from the base, working my way up, to sort of create this staggered effect where you've got the taller buildings in the back and the shorter buildings in the front. So you don't have anything occluding anything in the back too much. And pardon me, here I'm just fast forwarding through some of this just to make this a little quicker. Now here what I do is I select the entire group again, and I use the change these items drop down that I just selected there. And in there it's got an option that lets you flip on the X, Y, or Z axis. So in this case I chose flip on Y axis, and what that actually is going to do is in place it's going to flip the entire set of selected items vertically. So they're flipping over on end over end. And you can see there now that I've done that, I'm moving them all just a little bit back down to the ground, and doing a little bit of cleanup on the top now. But ultimately what I did there was I just cloned a bunch of buildings and then ripped off the bottoms of them to make staggered buildings and then flip them over to make them right side up using that change these items flip on Y-axis option. Now the next thing I want to do is add some lighting, some underlighting to these buildings. So I selected a bunch of those green witches cauldrons, and I went to the builds tab. I did a reset so that it would remeasure those items to get the proper dimensions. And now I'm constructing a floor template. That's that drop down at the top. And that's basically just a flat horizontal rectangle of any size dimensions that you want to do. So in this case I'm doing, I don't know, like 10 by 4 for 40 of them. And I use that checkbox towards the top in the settings there, the layout items in a checker pattern to sort of stagger them for each row. So one row is indented, the next row isn't. Once I move them into place, I'm going to just move them a little below ground. And then I'm going to go back over to the, I'm going to leave the builds tab and go over to the select tab. And again, I'm going to use that change these items drop down and scroll down to that turn these items on option. And what that does is any items that I've selected, in this case all the cauldrons, it's going to just cycle through all of them and toggle every single one of them on. So you can use that as a quick way to turn on or off or toggle a bunch of toggleable interactive items like lights or whatever. Now I'm going to skip ahead because I want to, in the same video, I want to show you just a little bit of each kind of thing you can do with this tool. So here I'm showing you how to sort of add some extra effects, weather stuff. In this case I'm adding a sky overlay using Essential Housing Tools effects platform. So if you mouse over that EHT button, on the left side there's a button that opens the effects menu, and that lets you add from a huge selection. There's like over 600 effects now. You can add a variety of different things. So in this case I added a green sky in the back, which I actually think I ended up changing that color. And here I'm adding some snowfall, some heavy snowfall, and I actually cloned that effect to double the amount of snow just to give it some more density there. And as you can actually see from the video, with all these effects they can be resized, they can be recolored, so you can sort of dye all these things, change it however you need to match whatever you're trying to build, whatever mood you're trying to set. So I think by this point I had already decided to make this into a sort of Emerald City kind of build. So I'm just going to do some final touch-ups, adding some, I think I add some lights from already to do like a fog kind of effect by scaling them and changing the size, color, adding some beams of light, and one of those Technicolor effects to change the overall tint of the entire house, make it a little more green, again, Emerald City theme. And I think after adding a little path in the front, tied together, it ended up looking pretty Emerald City-esque. But anyway, that's just a taste of what you can do with Essential Housing Tools. I wanted to give you a quick overview. If you guys like this format, let me know, and I can do more of these. If you have any suggested topics, I can cover whatever you want me to talk about. If you have any questions on a particular feature, just let me know, okay? Thank you so much. Bye.